Hey everyone, welcome back to another tutorial. So today we are going to be going over Fish, which is the programming language for Shnth, which is a synthesizer computer music device interface by Shbobo and the people at See It Lombard, Peter Blasser. It's a collaboration between Peter Blasser and someone else. I just had this open. Anyway, so shout out to this person. Great resource for things, and I'll link this in the description. But the Shnth is just it's a synthesizer. It works with this computer music, sort of node-based, esoteric programming language. This is what it looks like. There's 4 bars that you can touch and press to interface with the program. There's 8 buttons, 4 major buttons and 4 minor buttons. There is a corp on the back. There's 2 corps that are antenna basically that can also interface with it. Think of it like a theremin basically. The closer you are, the higher the value, the farther away you are, lower the value. Tar is the reset for the corp, so the sort of like neutral base for the corp. There's a bunch of lights on it, and that's pretty much it. So output jack, stereo output jack, USB, and then there's an internal battery that doesn't last too long. Wait, is there a jack on the bottom? No, there's no jack. That's that basically. So yeah, let's get into Fish. So this is Fish. There's also Jish, which works in Java. I'm gonna be primarily just working in Fish. Let's just get sound out of the Shnth over here. So I like starting with the left and the right, which is just the left headphone and the right headphone. That's my computer noise. There is it's a bunch of different oscillators. So horn over here is a triangle waveform. Saw is a sawtooth waveform. Smoke is white noise. Horse is a variable duty saw triangle that I won't really be getting into, but you can explore that. And then there's sort of granular sort of oscillators here. There's fog, which will trigger triangular waveform grains. Haze will trigger sawtooth waveform grains. Swamp is like swooping grains that are kind of sine triangle. Like string is like a plex string, so think of like harpless strong synthesis, triggering it that way. Comb is the input for the string. Zither is a bunch of strings. Then there's filters. Wave is a low pass filter. Salt is a high pass filter. Water is like a cluster of waves that I'm not really sure how it works, but I assume it's sort of a granular sort of filter in the same way fog and haze are. Wheel is sort of like a input numbers to bring the value up or down, like a undulating random source basically that goes up and down based off the numbers. Salsa is like a sample and hold basically. There's also wind over here, which is the microphone. There's a microphone on it. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but that's on there. Microphone's like in the device, like right in the middle. Yeah, left and right, we'll go to left and right. Lights will trigger the lights. Dust is like random pulses. Smoke is white noise. Swoop will trigger a pyramid, like a up and down. Toggle will trigger a flip flop. Yeah, those are pretty much all that I use. There's not much documentation for this stuff online. Sample rate will change the sample rate of the Shnth, and you'll notice as you add more and more things, the sample rate will begin to change on itself. just because the CPU is not that crazy. So yeah, and there's a bunch of math functions like and, nor, but yeah, that's most of what I use. But let's just get into, okay, and then there's the bars and but we went over that. Let's get into making some sounds. So I'm gonna do, just because it's louder, I'm gonna do saw. Let's do some saws. And when you drag something in, there's a few places you can drag it into. Left and right is our main fish. These are called fish, and then the whole thing is called a boat. So I'm adding guts into the fish, basically. We don't want to add it on where left is highlighted. We want to add it next to left, so that it goes in. Because if we add it onto it, it will just replace it, and then we don't want that. So adding it in, and then yeah. So let's add the rest of ours in. I'm just gonna add 4 of these so that we have four saws for our 4 bars. If I serve this to the Shnth now, all 4 of these will just come out, but I want the bars to control them. As far as tuning for each oscillator, there's a numerator and denominator, and these are just these values are just intonation. I'll also link Peter's article on tuning in the description. For right now, I'm just putting in random sort of numbers, and as you drag in operators, it'll put in random numbers regardless. But I'm just choosing some nice numbers that I think might sound nice, possibly. And then to sort of organize this, you can grab things by their handle. So this is grabbing the whole fish by its handle. If I grab left by its handle and I hit enter, it will indent and just will organize our stuff better. Then we add bars. If we add a bar to the end of the oscillator, it will be mull. So if things sort of load in and there's no mull, most likely the next value is mull. If you had to add a handle and just start typing, it'll add that next operator, which is mull. So I'm just going to drag in these bars, and these bars will increment from bar B, bar C, bar D randomly. So the next one should just be bar. So we have all 4 bars controlling all 4 of our oscillators. Bar, bar, bar. We serve this. So as I press on these bars, these different saws should come out of the speakers. So 2 of these saws are very similar, so I'm going to make this, I think it's that one. So our saws are coming out of the speakers. Another thing I want to try, just to go over some more things, is slew. So as I press down on these, it's very instantaneous. Like I push down, I release. The sound comes out when I push down and when I release. But I want to add a decay, so I'm gonna use slew for that. So slew basically interpolates an up and down value. Let's see what it says here. Filter a signal with different up and down rates. It changes the rate of getting to a value and getting from a value. So if I put slew before our bar, put the bar into slew, and I'll do that for the rest of these too, and change our up value to something like 120. I think the max for these is 128 or 127. So bar wants to go into in, not here. So let's do up as 120. So our it's going to trigger immediately, and then I want a low, really slow decay. So I'm gonna make it Gonna make it 1 actually, because slew doesn't have that much range, so 1 is gonna be a super long decay. So this should trigger immediately when we press down on it, and then it'll slew the going down value by 1, which is really long. So there we got that. A few other things that we could do. Let's play around with the filter and with corp. So let's do a high pass filter on all 4 of these. So I'm dragging in salt. I don't know if I said this, but things will sort of increment. The number next to each of these operators is how many of them there are, and it'll increment randomly as you drag things in. So I'm dragging in 4 salts. You don't want to copy and paste really in this program too much, because things will start to be used for the same thing. Like if I copy salt and use it again, it'll have the same sort of values or be controlled by the same thing. That's more important with like using random and sample and hold stuff. Let's drag these boats into salt, these fish into these fish. Ooh, not the whole thing, that one. Change the Q. I'm just gonna make this 64, which is like halfway. Q is resonance of the filter. And let's have the rate be controlled by corp. These will be added randomly. And then that value ranges from 0 to 128 or 127. Corp is the antenna on the back, so what I'm gonna do when I serve this is I'm gonna hold out my hands, basically only hold the sides of it with only hold the sides of the Shnth with my palms, with my hands sticking out, and then I'm going to press tar, which will reset it, so that the closer I put my hands to the back of it, it'll change the filter cutoff, basically. You could also start it with your hands all the way on the back of it, and then press tar, and then that'll reset the antenna that way. But I like to have it further out, so I'm going to serve it. Hold it out with my fingers facing forward, press tar, and then the closer I put my hands, the higher that cutoff. So that's super fun. Something to do to make this these notes more complex is change the notes randomly. I like doing this. I'm gonna do it with toggle. So toggle will trigger a flip-flop. So if I add toggle to our numerator of our notes here, we want to trigger the toggle randomly. We're going to do that with dust, which is random pulses, at a fairly slow rate. We also want to use an add, because we want to add a default number that's just there, or it's just the number we started with. So let's add, if we just click our boat and start typing, it'll add to our list. So let's add that. Let's put we don't want the denominator one in the numerator, so let's add that to the list by going into not the current item in our list, but the next one, then I'll add another thing in our list. Let's do that. Our dinos are still the same. And we want to multiply toggle by a number, so let's do toggle by 12 for that, 24 for that, 16 for that, and 18 for that one. So basically this will toggle between 12 and 12 plus 18 at this rate. We make this 2, 1, 3, and 4, and you'll see the rate. You'll hear the rate of that in a sec. So now I'm toggling between 2 notes for each oscillator. That's happening randomly, and then all the envelopes are still happening the same way. Serve it. So the only thing I'm doing to change the note is to change between these 4 oscillators that we have, 2 on the left and 2 on the right. But the other note changes are randomly by those dusts that are triggering that toggle between one note and the other. And that's super fun, and that sounds great, and I love it. That's something I like doing. Something I like to do to save this, I'm gonna do... I just open text edit. I keep a bunch of scripts in there. And then you go here and do copy, make sure that like nothing's selected, do copy to clipboard, and that's your code, and you can just have that code there. Don't need this one. That's our first one. Or I just want to copy the, delete the, save this one. Fish one. So now we can delete this by holding clicking one of the boats and then just deleting a bunch. Let's do these granular ones. So let's do left and right again, and let's do four haze. The only reason I'm not doing fog and a horn is because the triangle is a little harder to hear, but they operate the same exact way. These I'm not going to have controlled by bars. I'm just going to have these be. They need a trigger, so we're going to use dust for triggering, but you can use buttons, or you can use pretty much anything that sends a pulse. You can also use square. You can use square on things to make basically it's like a threshold. It'll make anything into a square or a pulse. You can use those for triggers. If you want to use bars for triggering stuff, you can do that. But I like just to use dust for these specifically. The swoop up and swoop down are the envelope. Basically, swoop. Sorry, not swoop up and swoop down. Swoop numerator and swoop denominator are basically the shape of the grains and the amplitude of the grains. So swoop denominator is more or less the range. And swoop denominator is sort of like the shape or the speed of each envelope. So I'm going to make those into sort of lower values. We have our dust triggering it, and then we have our swoops and our horns, which are not horns, our saws. Let's put in haze. now I just applied the same toggle thing that we did before to this new patch. In our saw numerator. I just unplugged Shnth for now. Something we could talk about here is boats. So we have our script from before. Let's copy this one to the clipboard and add it to our note, the same one that we had before. Boats are made with curly brackets. So if I add curly brackets to the beginning, and boats are basically presets. So if I add curly brackets to the beginning and ends of our first script and our second script, copy this, go back to fish, and do new from clipboard, close this, oh, oop. Sometimes fish will just close entirely. New from clipboard. We have our operators here. Now you can see we have two boats and we have those little curly brackets. And you can jump from one boat to the other, basically with anything, but we can use a button. So if we serve this, oh, yeah, not plugged in. So now we're on our first script from before. If we put a jump before left, indent it. What button haven't we used? We're not using any minor or major buttons. Let's use a major. Let's use the first major button, which is just major. Multiply it by 1, which is just adding 1 here. It puts in mul automatically. Let's copy this and paste it on our second thing over here and put it before. Basically what this will do is it'll jump from one boat to the other when major is pressed, so we can basically switch between presets. So we're on our first one. Now I'm going to press major, and now we're on our haze. So you can use that in a sort of performative way, or just to switch between different things. And yeah, that's a way to add even more stuff. So we can just keep adding, what is this? Reference. So we can just keep adding boats. We can just copy and paste this, and make it blank. Indent it the same way, and the end of the boat, go down. You can also make notes outside of things, like just clicking and typing, and then this will be hazy, foggy boat. And then this will be nice sounds. And we can just note things that way. So we're going to keep our jump there, and let's just work on something new. So, what else haven't we gone over? Let's go over pinging filters. So, let's use a low pass filter for this one. Let's add our left and right. And let's add two low pass filters. Let's add dust as what's going to trigger these. And then let's make our Q super resonant, which is just 1, the max resonance that it can be. And then let's have our rate be random. So let's use salsa, which is our sample and hold. Salsa requires a what you're sampling, so we're gonna sample white noise, which is smoke. I'm gonna trigger salsa with the same dust that's triggering the filter. So I'm gonna copy that and hit trig handle, but that didn't work. Copy it, drag it in. We want this to be this one, so Control C. Copy that over trig, so we want this to be our trig. Let's make this 2. Then we want, yeah, so I want to make salsa not go too high, so I'm going to make it 40 be the maximum, multiply by 40 and be the maximum sort of frequency that we get to. And let's serve that. Let's see what it sounds like. Press this twice to get to our third boat. And now it's triggering, it's pinging our filter randomly. So that's that. That's another thing you can do. We can also trigger some strings randomly. Let's do string. Want it to be within left and right. Oop. What the hell? Remember to grab things by their handle. Feedback, we want it to feedback a lot, so let's do like, so the higher the number, the higher the feedback. So let's do 119 out of 127 on the feedback there. Let's make that also random, the pitch of the strings. And let's make this, make our filter resonance less decay on that filter. And let's make the range for the filter higher. Even higher feedback on those. 80 is a bit high. Let's do 30 for that dust and 20 for these dusts. But it does sound cool kind of fast. That's fun. So that's our third little boat there. Yeah. You can save these as a PNG if you want to. save a little picture to your desktop. They come up as a long picture you can put on your website for something, or whatever. One thing to note again, if fish crashes, it'll show a little uploader and it doesn't work. Just hit cancel, unplug the Shnth, hold the tar button, plug the Shnth back in, upload your stuff again, unplug Shnth, and then just plug Shnth back in. And that will sort of reset. Yeah. Another thing to note up here, the gwonzer is will show you basically just a visual representation of the bars and the antenna. So as you press on the bars, it'll show you up and down. This and then wind is that last one. And then antenna, resetting the antenna, going up and down, resetting it, going up and resetting it, going up and down, etc. Set it in the middle, then it's up, and then it's down. Set it down with left and right antenna. That's the spit gwonz. And then these last ones are the buttons. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.